let's move on. Let's talk about some other stuff. One of the tools that's mentioned in the roadmap happens to be the things that Paul Torrance put out on creative thinking. And what I've discovered is if you can teach this to the students, and I'm talking elementary students, any age students, you can teach this to the students, it can be your friend. And it'll also kind of help guide some of the things that you're looking at, even for team solutions particularly. So the first thing is fluency. And all fluency means is, and it's about lots of ideas, it's about quantity, it's not about quality. And so whenever I use the word fluency with a team, I mean I want more ideas. Give me more ideas. You've got to be more fluent. Obviously the more fluent a group, and that's what we were talking about earlier with the questioning, the more ideas you come up with, the more options you have. And so you want to be sure, and it's that same old brainstorming thing, coming up with as many things as you possibly can. One of the things I've discovered with younger ones, if you're starting with a novice team, to say, I want as many as you can come up with, we need a number. And we need a number that's going to stretch them. So you put a number on it. Like here in this example, name things that are red. Well, instead of just saying name things that are red, you might say list 6. Because with a novice team, you need to grow that number. And the only way you can watch that number grow is if you start with some number. And so when we say name as many as you can, well, they name 4 and they stop. Well, is that really all they can name? Probably they should be able to name more than that, I would think. So we put a number on it that's going to stretch them a little bit that they can achieve. We also can use this same sort of thing in our lesson plans for our meetings when we start looking at what are we going to achieve at the next meeting. So the meeting previous, we kind of set an agenda for the next meeting. And so then we kind of shape some questions that'll work that way, because the next time we're going to talk about skip. Well, list as many characters as you can, list as many settings as you can, list as many whatevers as you can. So that we come up with some things that are going to be somewhat within the realm of what they need to do, but it's not going to be anywhere where it's going to be interference. It's not going to be guiding the solution. It's not going to stick the solution. And those questions, if we have a team of middle schoolers and high schoolers, those are certain questions that they formulate themselves. It's not the sort of thing that we have to do that. It is one of the things, though, that early on, before we ever start doing our team challenge, if we brainstorm and we just talk about characters in general, if we just talk about settings in general, if we just talk about those sorts of things in general, there's no interference there because we've not really started yet. It just kind of sets the tone for starting to kind of generate some of those sorts of things. So the first thing is we want our students to be fluent thinkers. And again, how do I know I've arrived at that? It's when I ask a question and I start getting multiple answers. Are they bad answers? They may be, but they're still fluent thinkers. We're not just looking for good answers. We're looking for possible answers. Just as many as possible. The next thing is flexible thinkers. And being flexible means that what we can do is we can engage in thought shifts. And for most of the adults in the room, if you can imagine an ADD child not on medication, that is natural thought shift processing. Because really and truly what happens is with an ADD child is they're actually shifting their thinking all the time. And the reason we medicate them is because we want them to stay on one. And so to be able to teach them, we try to get them to stay on that one thing. But really and truly what they do is they take something and they deviate from it just enough. If you ask them about it, there's still going to be a connection, what they just said, to the nugget of where you started. But it's a deviation out to a different category from it. Saying, well, you didn't say what kind of teeth, that's a deviation. That's flexible thinking. And so what we have to do sometimes, particularly with instant challenge. So the instant challenge says, create a presentation where you show a new way of cleaning teeth. But what I need to do in the debriefing is say, guys, did you ever take the word teeth and try to see if you could break it out into some other categories? We need to start looking at words and places where we can break out into other categories. And so that categorical thinking, we want to move from that if we possibly can. And we kind of deviate out and branch out from that somewhere. But when I say to her, so how are you going to put those two pieces of wood together? And she says, well, we're going to nail it, we're going to get screws, we're going to glue it. And I say, could you be more flexible? Chewing gum, Sticky honey. Does honey harden? I don't know, but if it does, that might be impossible. She knows what the word flexible means. She may not necessarily give you great answers, but she knows what the word means, and she can do that. Flexibility, if you look back at the one we just looked at where it said name things that are red, well, if I'm saying that out loud, one of the things you're going to say to me is
Newspaper.
Newspaper, right, because it's red. That goes back to the old joke. You know, what's black and white all over red? What's red, black, and white? Oh, yeah, that's newspaper. Flexibility, so how can you train that? Well, for example, here's a list. Notice that this list, I want to show you some things about this list. This is a parallel list, which means they're all the same part of speech, and they're all places. So it's a parallel list. And so I've got a list of places. And so now what I'm going to do is to try to get them to understand how flexible works. I say this. I want you to name for me something that's red on the playground. Name something red that's in the kitchen. Name something red that's in the movie theater. Name something red that's in the bank. Name something red that's in the restaurant. Because what I'm doing is I'm shifting categories every time I do that. Now, let's take that same concept to Team Challenge. They have brainstormed a list of possible settings for their Team Challenge. They did that. Now, we could take that same list and they could work it the same way. So you've got a list of places. Now we can almost do the same thing with conflicts. Name a conflict we would find on the playground. Name a conflict we might find in the movie theater. And of course their lists are going to be much more unusual than that. But you go through it and you can do the same thing. It changes every time. Characters, you can do the same thing with characters. Name a character you would find on the playground. Okay, you can go through, name an animal. And then they go, well, we want to do animals. Okay, so let's name an animal we find on the playground. Let's name an animal that we find in the bank. Let's name an animal that we find in... And when you start doing that, they're going, an animal in the bank. Now then, you're going to find that that whole thing about stupid and creative, you have to be careful of. Because we're going to talk about elaboration in just a moment, and you have to be sure that the animal makes sense in the bank. That there's a reason for the animal in the bank. And that's a whole nother discussion somewhere else. But this starts getting to where they can think like that, and you can use it with the things that the team comes up with, and they can generate from that list. It's obvious that you need to keep up with notes and things, or take your phone out when they've written a list of something and take a picture of it so we can always go back and reference where they are. We've got to go back and reference where they are. Instead of referencing where I want to be, I have to reference back to where they are. So I can use my phone, take a picture of it, and say, hey guys, last time you were together, here's some settings. So, now what did y'all want to do next? Characters, okay. And we can generate from that. The other list here, notice this one. This one is not concrete nouns. These are all emotions. So with a more sophisticated team, or a high school team, an older team, you can use these lists to do the same thing. Name something red that has to do with love. Name something red that has to do with greed. Name something red that has to do with war. What's something red that has to do with embarrassment? Name something that has to... Name a conflict that centers around love. Name a conflict that centers around greed. Name a conflict that centers around embarrassment, around anger.
If they give an answer that doesn't quite make sense, like they just say a dog in a bank, is it our job to say why?
It is your job to say why, but not your job to say no. and that is something else, and when we get to evaluation, we're going to talk about that. Because students don't understand the concept of evaluation, and that's another thing that we need to teach them. And that's another one of the components in this group, is evaluation. So we're going to get to that. But yeah, our job is to say why, but our job is not to say no. Because to say no is interference. To say why is to teach them a skill. And so we want to consider that saying no can be interference. So you notice these lists. Now it also works with materials. The same thing is true of materials. This is paper plate. Well, what we do is we can do it with materials. And with younger kids, say 7th grade and down, materials work really, really well. Here's a paper plate. Here's a whole stack of paper plates. And what I want you to do is I want you to take that paper plate and I want it to become as many things as it possibly can. Because most of the time, if you're doing an instant challenge and this is on the table as a prop, this becomes nearly always, it's a plate, it's a taco, it's a mask, and it's a Frisbee. And that's typically about the extent of where we go with younger kids. So if you're looking at using it, obviously, if you're talking about building with it, you can take a paper plate, and a paper plate becomes a great extender because you can take a paper plate and you can get something that is really, really pretty long out of it just simply by using a pair of scissors and cutting it. At the same time, with this same particular concept, you get a really great tail as well. Now, when you start looking at using materials like this, pre-team challenge, it starts getting students to thinking, okay, so what do we have available to us that we could do that same sort of thing with? Because with a simple paper plate, all you have to have is a couple of paper plates, and suddenly you are set to go with some great sorts of things, like if you use the paper plates effectively, you're set to go because with 1.5 paper plates, you get ears and a tail. I mean, how cheap is that? And it's pretty darn effective because you get the concept. Paper plates, you look at them and you're thinking, okay, you want to use it for a mask, what most of them do is punch holes in them. But if you start looking at this thing, if you were to show them that you could actually probably take this thing and if you cut it the right way, if you cut this thing the right way, you probably could get this thing to actually stay on his face. You big-headed sucker. Now, see, it'll stay on his face. No tape, no glue, it stays on his face. And we've got, oh, that really is interesting looking. Particularly when you chew like that. That actually looks like big vampire fangs. Are you cleaning your teeth? That's what I thought. So what you want them to do is, that's flexible thinking. And what you have to do sometimes is you have to take materials yourself and say, how do you do that? You've seen the list where it says connectors, extenders, blah, 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 blah. Well, a lot of team managers copy those to the kids and go, here you go, look here at all these things and what they can be. We take a material and we say, okay guys, I want the longest thing I can out of that. Okay guys, I want this to carry as much water as you possibly can. Okay guys, I want you to use this so you can communicate with each other with your backs turned to each other. Okay guys, I want you to take this thing. And we use the same material for every one of those categories to where it breaks those categories every time. And so that no matter what the material is, that's the way they think. They look at something and go, you know what that could be? And of course, what does that do? Yes, you find a lot of times that you're playing around with stuff because that's what the team does. We start looking at how to use materials like, if you were to take, for example, well, that's going to get into evaluation. We'll get there in a minute. Anyway, flexibility. We do it with materials. We do it with ideas and words. We want them to be flexible. Take, for example, if you gave kindergartners crayons, if you gave them crayons, I don't know if y'all say crayons here or crayons, but it doesn't matter. If you gave them those things that you color pictures with. If you gave them crayons, on the first day the kids are going to say, what are we going to color? What are we going to draw with these? Oh, we're not going to draw. We're going to use them for Lincoln Logs, and we're going to build a house out of them. That's what we're going to do with them. The second day, if you bring in the same materials, they're going to say, are we going to build a house? No, we're not going to build a house. What we're going to do is we're going to shave them down and we're going to use an iron and some wax paper and we're going to make some stuff that looks like stained glass. We're going to put it up on the windows. I'm going to tell you on the third day, this is the question you're going to get. Some of the kids are going to say, what are we going to do with them today? We're now seeing a movement. We've moved a little bit. And if you then brought them in the next day, when they said, what are we going to do with them today? We're going to make candles out of them today. We're going to melt them down, we're going to put wicks in them, and we're going to make little candles out of them because they're wax. The next day, those kids are going to come in, and they're going to be 2 or 3 of them, and they're going to say, do you know what we could do if we had some crayons? We now have completely taken them from looking at using a material for what it was intended all the way over to getting them to explore what it's going to be like. Not asking you what are we going to do with them, but actually taking on the initiative to do that. And that's where we want to be. That's the kind of thinking we want to get to. We can do that with materials. We can do that with words. And that's part of being a flexible thinker. So we want to talk to them about being a flexible thinker. Alright. So we talk about all those materials. We talk about their possibilities. That's part of debriefing as well in that. And looking at all those. You know, it's like with the cards. They tore their cards, you notice? You notice they tore their cards? See? They've already ruined this card for point value for getting, because all they had to do if they wanted it to be a floor is just fold it like this. And there they've got one floor. If they had spent all this time together folding these things, they could have stacked them back and forth like this, and they would have had, now I'm going to tell you they'll pick up so many points with floors that height really wouldn't have mattered much after that if they were really picking up the floor. But sitting there, the four of them folding these evenly, they would have stacked up nicely, and they could have slipped another color in between them and just boom, boom, boom. Because they've already torn this card. And if you want to, if you think, well, the levels are going to be too big, we'll tear some of them this way, make them even smaller, so the smaller ones will fit on top of those as you go up and get them smaller. With one card, you could have done who knows how many levels in there. But that's part of debriefing for flexible thinking as well. We have to debrief on that as well. How to be flexible with materials and how to use them. Alright, the most misunderstood term that's taught in school. Elaboration. Because most people learn it to be, elaboration is always about more. No. The definition here is, it's to use details effectively. Effectively. And so when we start thinking about elaboration, it's not about always doing more. It's about doing the right thing. That's what it's really about. Choosing the right thing. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about elaboration, because elaboration has a lot of components to it. The first one, obviously, is words. Keep in mind that words need to be weighed, not counted. It's not about how many words, it's about the right word. Because if we choose the right word, sometimes that one right word is the best word. You know, she went to town yesterday. Well, she ran to town yesterday. Oh, she skipped to town yesterday. Oh, she zoomed to town yesterday. The word choice there gives a different mental image. Hear me. A good team that knows about elaboration, and I tell my teams this all the time, you have the ability to manipulate the thoughts of the people in the room. You want to get them to see and think exactly what you see and think. Because a good team, that's what they do. They get the audience to see it exactly the way they saw it, and they get the audience to think it exactly the way they thought it. And let me tell you what happens. You want to talk competition. I know some of you people do. I see you chomping bits about it. What happens is this. When the appraisal team sees it the same way we see it, and they get ready to score it, and she says, yes, yes, yes. Those are all three consistently probably high scores. When it's ambiguous and the audience didn't get it and they all didn't get the same thing as what the team had, she goes, well, I think I got it. Oh, I think I got it. Middle of the road. I didn't get that. Oh, low one. Oh, I got it. There's a high one. We don't want that. We want consistent. Yes, yes, yes. And so what we do is we do exactly what they do on Madison Avenue. It's advertising people. It's manipulating the mind. That's all you've got to do, and we do that with good elaboration skills. And so we have to say, what is it we want them to see? How do we want to show them that? How are we going to get them to see it our way? I mean, a good team, when they walk in the door before they ever set up, the appraisers are already engaged with them going, oh, and you would be surprised that the appraisers are already thinking some of the same things that they're going to get them to think in just a moment, because they've done such a good job of what they're already looking at that the appraisal team is already zoning in with them. They don't even have to take the appraisal team there after they set up. They're already going there with them. That's good elaboration. And so we have to teach that. Because when you say, guys, y'all need to elaborate maybe whenever you do your solutions, students hear there's got to be more. And sometimes more is worse. And that happens a lot of times when people write. They write something and you say you need to elaborate. What you really mean is I don't get it. And so they go from a half a page of I don't get it to 2 pages of I don't get it. So that's not what we want. We want to be sure. So words. First of all, we have 8 minutes. The words have to count. They have to count. Why would you say anything that doesn't count? It has to count. And we're still going to get back to the evaluation. Why did you say that? Why would you use that word? Why is that sentence? Why is that character saying it? It's about words. And that's looking at the words. The next thing is color. Color is an elaboration. I'm amazed at how many things I see in DI solutions that don't make any sense because of the color they are. I'm like, why is it that color? I would have never guessed that's what that is. Why is it that color? And they finish performing, you're still going, what was that? And then you talk to them and they go, it's up, and you went, why is it that color? I don't know.
I know what they said.
We like that.
We thought it was creative.
We thought it was creative. Well, we're not going to tell them what it really is. But that's the point. It's not good elaboration because it doesn't make any sense. So color. Well, look at all the color choices. As a good team manager, you need to be sure that color, when you talk about elaboration, is one of the things that's put forward. Do you have a color wheel that you put up for them? Do they actually have a color wheel? Who's buying the materials here? Probably you. Who's picking up the materials from? Probably you. Well, or a parent. And so when a kid says, well, we think we want red. Now this is personal experience. We want red. I went and bought red. This is an orange red, and we were thinking a black red. Oh. Okay. Because this is like a Oriental thing, and Oriental people don't use that orange red. They use that black kind of red, that deep, rich. Silly me. Let me go get a different can of red paint. I just thought red was red. You know, you pick up the can of red, it said red. But when they opened it, they said, it's orange. Well, I discovered a color wheel does a huge thing for us. Because then when you say, well, what does it look like? Do you know what color it is? Yeah, it's kind of that color. Okay, now I'm picking up on what the image in her head looks like because now I've got a color to associate with it, and we're getting truer to the picture. Also, color is a great thing for emotion. It's setting. Okay, if you're doing blue, well, a light blue sky depicts something totally different than a navy blue sky. And if you're talking about water, you know, a greenish colored water and a brownish colored water and a bluish colored water say three, or a yellow colored water, those all say a different sort of thing whenever you're looking at them. So color makes a difference. So then they say, well, water's not all one color, so we're going to make it a little yellow, a little brown, a little... Then we get into evaluation again. What does that say about the water? Well, we wanted it to say ocean. Well, are we talking a calm ocean? Are we talking an ocean that's churning because of a storm? You know, color tells us something. We're talking cool. Cool is usually blue. Hot is usually red or orange. Or maybe red, orange, and yellow. We're talking about angry. Angry is probably going to be a red. And calm is going to be a blue. We're talking royal. Royal is going to be a rich color, like probably purple. It's one of those things to where color is a great elaboration technique. Do you really think that advertisers are not very intent when they choose the apples they put in a picture? They are very picky about the color of the apples and what they show in the photograph. Everything is purposeful whenever they do advertisement. And one of the things that most students can relate to are advertisement. And so we talk about it in terms of how you advertise. Same thing's true. Color is a huge factor when you're talking about elaboration. Movement. Movement and placement is also an elaboration tool. So when you start talking about movement and elaboration, let me show you what I mean. This is your typical performance stance for most DI teams. That's it, right there. And you see it over and over and over for a lot of performances. Now, this performance stance is good for some things, but it's not really very interesting at all, if you will. Would you step forward? Would you kneel right in front of her, please? Right. would you step behind her, please? No, actually, step over here. And you step behind her. And you step over here on this side, her right side. Okay, step up close. Okay, would you hold both of your arms up, just straight up like this? Nice and high, that's right, that's it. Would you hold this arm out? And would you hold your arm out that way? And would you hold both of your arms up, straight up, this way? And would you just stretch both your hands out across his head like this? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I show you this to say, this is interesting. I have no idea what they're going to do, but I'm going to tell you, this is interesting. Do you see the difference in the way that looks? That is an elaboration technique. That's about movement and placement. Now, why would they do that? I don't know. But I'm just telling you, as the praiser, I'm like, bring it on. I'm ready to watch this because you've now engaged me and piqued my curiosity about things. All right, we'll stand up. Now then, if you would, you're tall. Get behind her, please. All right. Can you do this over her shoulders? No, you get your arms. You can't do that with your own shoulders. Okay, back and forth. All right, like that. That's it. Okay, so if you'll step up here, and every time she comes forward, use your right hand. Every time she comes forward, if you will just come up and so that your hands hit. Oh, you go. Okay. Now, if you would, I'm going to step right over here. And every time their hands hit, if you'll just hit him on the shoulder.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Now, if you would, if your arm, every time you hear their, if you would sling this hand out here, okay? All right, you got that? All right. Now, every time her hand flings out, I want you to yell ding. Now see how loud. Okay, now every time you say ding, throw your arms out this way. Notice how interesting that is. Now what this does, I have no idea again, but it's interesting. Now here, see if you can do this. I'm going to give you a paper plate, and I want this. This is a human machine, and I want this product delivered. Somehow this product has to get to the, and she is the end of the line right here. So I want that product delivered as the machine operates. Can you do it? So much for that nice little, okay. Won't even frisbee anymore. Okay. Oh, it just had to be delivered. Didn't have to. Okay, now notice that one of the things about elaboration that we know of is about delivery of lines. And when we see faces, we expect delivery. That's just one of those things. So as an instant challenge appraiser, I'm watching them thinking, okay, they're all going to talk at some point because I'm looking at faces. That's an expectation. But I want you to, would you turn around, please? Face the wall. Turn around, face the wall. Turn around, face the wall. Turn around, face the wall. Take a step forward so I can walk behind you. Step. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's, if you're looking at this, I now expect her to speak. But the rest of them, I don't expect them to speak because their backs are to me. But the nice thing about this is it gives me some flexibility as a team to do something. Because Elizabeth, what she can do is she can then gesticulate and she can present and she can step forward and she can step back. And then when she's through, she can turn around. And then Nathaniel turns around and he steps forward and he presents and he delivers and then he turns around and he steps back. And it's actually a great way to give you that feel of a curtain coming on stage, going off stage. It also, if you would, put your arms up and pretend to be a tree. Put your arms up and pretend to be a tree. 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 Okay, so now what we have is we've got a character in a forest. And the great thing about it is we don't expect the trees to talk because their faces are not. And she comes out and she says, oh, I'm the hero. Here I am. I'm in woe. I'm in the forest. It's awful. Oh, me. How terrible. If only somebody would come to my rescue. Well, the nice thing is, You have the enchanted tree who can now come and say, hello, hero, let me save you. And she says, but how could you possibly do that? He says, don't worry, I have friends. Come, little trees, come and help me. Come out from wherever you are. Surround our hero and protect our hero with your many limbs. All right, stupid little story, but do you notice how much better that was than if they'd all lined up and said, we're trees. And you had to tell the appraisers that. Another thing, using for props is also good elaboration. Would you two ladies in the same time, would you step up here and turn your back to the audience? Shoulder to shoulder. Okay, now you two ladies are, you know those sliding doors at the grocery store that, okay, so here we go. Open, close. Open, close. All right, team, now you're going to go through this door. All right? You're going to go through the door into the grocery store, and every time you step through the door, I want to see a nice face of some kind. Give me some kind of interesting face. Can you do that? That's good enough. That's pretty interesting. Okay, here we go, team. One at a time through the door. See, interesting, huh? See what a nice entry this is? This is a nice entry. Oh, there he is. He looks almost like she does, but she's just normal. Kidding, Amy. I'm kidding. Do you notice how using movement? Movement is great elaboration for things. And of course, these people could be a different kind of door. Can you do this? No, this. There, right there. Yeah. Now, see here? Now we got those kind that just swing. Look at this. Boy, that's got a loose hinge. You grab this door and it pops open. That's good. I'm going to talk to my contractor about that one. Okay, give him a hand. That's really okay. Movement. We sometimes overlook movement as something that we should experiment with our students. And movement is a piece of elaboration. We don't move if it's not necessary. We don't talk if it's not necessary. We might not show our faces unless it's necessary. Those are all part of the whole movement concept of what we do with elaboration skills. Here's one, team explanation. You know those paperworks that you fill out? Okay, good elaborative fill. Here's the good thing about it. They need to be sure that when they fill those out and what's written on those are clear. The clarity of them need to be where the appraiser reads and goes, I know exactly what needs to be done. I don't have a question. I get it. I've not even seen what they're doing, but based on what I can read, I know what they're going to show me in a little bit. That's good elaboration skills. Because again, we wanted to say, look at the rate sheet, read it, watch the performance, yes, yes, yes. We're all in agreement. I am scoring the correct thing. I'm scoring for the appropriate thing. Yes, I see all of those sorts of things. The other thing is, we need to be sure that the team members understand that part of what they have to do is they have to direct appraisers to the components that matter. Because I'm going to tell you that there are times that a team does something, that they do something that blows me away, and there's no points in it. And the appraiser's like, that was awesome. And the kid's like, whoa, back up, Jack, get over there. Go look at something that's important for scoring. And it matters in the elaboration phase of that. Not only do we need to be able to write it, we need to be able to explain it. We need to be able to say, let me tell you about, yes, that's really cool. Did you see our? Have you looked at our? Would you like to see the? Because we did a really good job, I think, on our. And so we redirect in that. And I think really, and let me tell you, that's part of the celebration, the evaluate, celebrate, validation point. Because we want to be sure as a team that we are actually being looked at the whole picture of everything. Not just one something that, yeah, we knew that was great. It was coincidental, it just happened. But yeah, it was great. But we don't want them all focused on that. So part of the elaboration is in the explanation as well. Team data forms, you got to be sure they're filled out completely. There's no excuse for them not being filled out. And they need to be filled out completely. All the scoring items need to be clearly represented. Clearly. The word is clearly there. And then the team members need to know the information on the forms so that they can explain that information as well. Because whenever a appraiser's talking to Nathaniel, and he needs to know what's on that sheet, Nathaniel needs to be able to express that, whatever that is. They need to be in sync. And so much of the time, we find that that's not true, that all 7 of them can't do that. Okay, you say, well, one kid built it. Then there needs to be another child that comes asked needs to say, I didn't do that, but you need to talk to Nathaniel because it was awesome what he did. There is some knowledge in that. It's not just, well, let me see if I can explain it as inadequately as I possibly can. You know, it's about appreciation, respect, and pointing to what he has done. All right, what about size? Size is also an elaborated fact. Big or small? We see that so many teams go really big. So the bigger the better. It's all about the size. Well, it's not always about how big it is. Sometimes it's about what you're going to use it for. It needs to have purpose. I show you this particular group of students. This is the structure team. And I want you to notice how small the houses are on this set. And there's 6 of them here. That's not, I think there's 7 houses or 8. But notice how small the houses are. That's because they decided that they could do a backdrop of one house. Or the old, let's flip it all the time and make 7 appear. Or let's take the appraisers on a trip through the entire village. And the only way you can go through the entire village is to get all the houses at once. And so they decided to go small. Now I will tell you the thing that intrigued me about this was the characters are big. So the people won't fit in the houses. So my question to one of the team members on this was, the people are so big, the fairy tale characters are huge, and the houses are small. Our response, of course we are. We're now famous. We're bigger than life. Worked for me. What a great explanation. It's about what you, and actually when I watched the performance, I realized that that was built into the performance. Because they wanted to be sure the appraisers didn't get hung up on the fact that they were so much bigger than the houses, because they were disproportionate. They thought about that. And that's important. But this is one of the things, we see big all the time, but we don't always see small. Again, it has to be seen from 25 feet away. Got that? Well, these are obviously visible from 25 feet away, but they look like little small houses. And you can tell what they are. But again, it's about size sometimes. Big or small, what are you going to do with that? Well, let's talk about originality. Well, originality we know means unique. It's one of a kind. We know that. Nobody's going to argue that fact. The problem you have is looking at how do we arrive at original. That's really the quandary we're in. Is how do you get a group of students to understand original to be able to arrive at it? Well, ponder this question. What do we have today that we didn't have the capability of 400 years ago? Ponder the question. What do we have today that we didn't have the capability of 400 years ago? Somebody want to venture an answer to that? Yes, sir?
Electronics.
Electronics. I will tell you that in most adult groups, I get the answers of computers or electronics, flight of some kind, telecommunications of some kind. Those are the big ones.
Just communication between ideas.
What?
Communication between ideas.
Okay, communications. Well, if you read the question now,
Is it the capability?
the capability. We had the capability 400 years ago, everything that he just mentioned. We had the capability. Most students don't realize that we have a set number of resources. We really do have a set number of resources. So what's the difference if we've got a set that we could have had all this same stuff 400 years ago? Why did we not? Well, because we hadn't found the right combinations yet. It's about combinations is really what originality is about, because we have a set number of resources. Most students think that originality is almost like spontaneous combustion. Ooh, a new iPhone. No, it was finding a new combination to create that particular device. Oh, we have a cure. We have a cure for a rare disease. No, that was a century in the making of recombining things that we knew would happen and wouldn't happen chemically to get to that point. So then my question to my students is, okay, so now that you know what originality is, how can you find combinations that will yield you something that's not been yielded before? That's really what original is about, is how do you do that? Sometimes it's taking a material that's never been used for that and using that material for something else. It's sometimes about taking two unlike things and linking them together. Okay, so you've got an octopus, and you've got this conflict about this octopus, and here's this octopus. Had you ever thought about taking an octopus and put that octopus over into a desert? What is it going to do to a conflict for an octopus when you put it in the desert? It's going to completely change the whole scheme of things. Let's say that you take Greek mythology. Well, to put Greek mythology where Greek mythology belongs is not created. But you take someone from Greek mythology and you lift them out of that and you put them into a scenario to where they're at a New Year's Eve party in downtown New York City with the balls getting ready to drop. That's two totally different scenarios then. It's a combination sort of thing. And if you think about some of those things you've seen, it's where students have found a new combination that really was the kicker. Because really and truly, people, there is no way to spontaneously combust something and it just goes, and you got it. It has to be a combination of something. And if you listen to most inventors that have come up with something really cool, how did they arrive at it? They piggybacked off of something else and they found something else to form with it and they joined together and it came together to be able to make something. It's like taking vampire teeth that you use in Halloween and you decide, well, you know what, if they had something gooey in them that would clean your teeth and you shove them on a kid's teeth the whole Halloween night. It would protect their teeth would be clean when they came home at the end. And a lot of slobber, but it's still be. Right, so originality. So then I start asking my students, so how do you come up with an original character? What's your original character going to be? So now my team knows, okay, wonder what we can combine together to get an original character. What could we possibly put together that might... So what have you ever thought about taking the list of characters you have? You know, you get down to it and the team's like, we want this one or this one. We can't decide. We can't decide. But what if those two characters were one character? So you've got two characters. Is there any way to morph them together into one character? And that's going to give you some sort of effect to where they can do that. Again, this is training before the fact. We don't say, you know what, your characters really aren't very original. Combine a couple. Why don't you combine those two together and it'd be a really good one. That's interference. We don't interfere. But we do teach them skills up front on how to arrive at things. This is probably one of the most key things for us is evaluation. It is key because she's already asked it. Thank you so much. That's what I was looking for. It is key because we know that it's about judging everything. It's about judging everything. Nothing goes unjudged. We judge everything. We're going to judge things like quality of workmanship. We're going to judge the idea. We're going to judge the color. We're going to everything. And it comes down to asking why. Why do you want it that color? Why do you want it that big? Why do you want it that small? Why do you want to put it together with screws? Why do you want to put it together with glue? It's about asking why to everything. Former student says to me the best thing I learned in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade from you, Mr. Wells, and it was the word why. He said, I now go into my job, he's a landscape architect, and he says that the first thing he asks anybody who comes in, he says, I want you to design me he says, the question is, why? Well, I want a lot of grass. Why? I think I really want some sort of outdoor, place that I can cook and entertain. Why? He said, because a lot of people have never considered why they want an outdoor kitchen. They don't entertain outdoors. Why do you want a kitchen when you don't entertain outdoors? Why do you want grass when you have trees? Why do you want to cut the trees down? Why? And he says that guides so much of everyone's life if they would start considering why. And so that was one of the big key words that I used all the time was why. Why that color, why that size, why that big. And it's not about trying to get them to change a mind or an idea. It's about getting them to look at the concept of why they did something. So what are some tools I could use? A checklist. So you need to work, if you would work from a checklist, it'd be really helpful. A checklist. First of all, your rubric is a checklist. That scoring sheet, that's a checklist. And I would suggest if you sat down with a team and you said, okay, we have to build a vehicle. What all is there that has to be done in that? And you make a list. Forget the scoring. What is there on that? Characters. What has to make a list? So there is a checklist to work from. That's a good evaluation piece. Because what we want to do is, as we're assessing, now in this particular model, Torrance uses the word evaluate. We're actually at the assess level of the creative process is where we are. We're assessing all of those little sub-things that we're doing. You know, why are we doing it this way? Why is it this? And we use a checklist so that we can go down it and say, we've done this. How does it size up? How is it working? How does it work in combination with other things? And we use a checklist to do that. And I'm going to say that with a checklist, it becomes my friend as a team manager because it protects me from interference. Because I go back to the checklist. Here's the checklist, Elizabeth. It also works for a great way to get them to work. There's the checklist. It's got jobs assigned. Y'all go ahead. You can come in. You can go to work. Let's get busy, get the paint out, whatever. And we've got a checklist. And they get used to it. We're about teaching them how to manage. And that is a tool for managing. And so if they ever need to manage a project, that's a good way to do that for the checklist. Another thing is that we can evaluate gauging on audience response. We want to be sure that we put forth something that the audience really and truly enjoys. Now, what do we not enjoy as an audience? We don't enjoy feeling like we don't know what's going on. We don't enjoy feeling like we've been left out somehow. We don't enjoy that. We like feeling like we're a part of it. We feel like we know everything. We feel like we know what's going on. We feel like, in this case, we should understand a presentation even without knowing the challenge. You know that compartment where it says structure is going to integrate the structure, crushing in with... That's where we get it as an audience. We don't even know what the challenge is, but we're going, well, look, all those other people just crushed that structure and they had a story going on. That makes sense. Atlas is holding up the world, and that structure is like Atlas holding up the world. That makes sense to me. That's integration. And so we want to be sure that the audience responds to that. And an audience that leaves going, I would really like to see that again. I really want to see that again. That was so intriguing that I want to see it again. And particularly appraisal teams that when something's over, they go, I wish we had time to watch that one again. Because I think I would get even more out of it the next time. And, you know, I listened to some appraisers talk. Donna, for example, she talks about things that she remembers that she's seen. And I'm going to tell you that she would even today say, I would like to watch that team perform again. I would like to see that solution again. Because that was so intriguing the first time I saw it, I want to see it yet again. So whenever you start thinking about evaluation, here's the thing. Evaluation hinges on elaboration. Good elaboration identifies its audience. And many times, teams have never been taught about appropriate audience. You ask, what in the part of the evaluation is, how do you think your audience is going to be? How old is your audience? And most of the kids will say, well, you know, it's the appraisers and they're going to be old, like, you know, probably 20, 30. You're right, probably. So you have to consider that when you start thinking about script. You have to think about that with subject matter. You have to think about that. That's part of what you do in evaluation, is you think about those things. Why would you choose that topic? There are some topics that students choose that have to have so much teaching during the 8 minutes that they lose their effectiveness. There's stuff I don't know anything about. And there's some things I don't want to know anything about. And I don't want to DIHQ trying to teach me about it. As an appraiser, I'm like, oh, 8 minutes of this, and at the end I'm feeling stupid because I'm like, I didn't get it. I have 8-year-olds that get this and I don't get it. Okay, so if they were doing another 8-year-old audience, they have them. Consider with evaluation, you talk to them prior to Team Challenge starting about looking at an audience. Target your audience. If you're going to manipulate the minds of your audience, you have to know who they are. because old people's minds manipulate different than young people's minds. So you have to consider that. Scale models. Good evaluation tool is scale models. I discovered how much time we would spend as a team manager building something that didn't work because it was too big or too little or didn't work, period. And so once you start considering the concept of scale models, you build it little, but to scale. So every inch is a foot or whatever. So if you build a backdrop that's this size, how does that compare to your people? Well, what they do is they measure everybody in there, and then they cut out little pieces of paper to stand up beside the backdrop, and they go, this won't work. Okay, good. I'm glad, because I didn't want you to build that big old thing. That's what I'm thinking in my head. We could have built this, and then it wouldn't work. So now with scale, they go, well, this won't work. So what could we do? And they start talking about possibilities with a scale model before we ever start actually building. It also works well for being able to delegate work. You build a scale model. Nathaniel builds it. He explains the concept. He builds the scale model. And Elizabeth goes, oh, I can build that. Now that I've seen it, I know how that works. I can do that. And so it also helps clarity on the part of the whole team. But scale models is another technique that can really and truly help with evaluation during the process. Again, I use the word evaluation. Remember, we're talking about assessment really back whenever we line it up with the creative model. What about outside eyes? Do the students have any idea what outside eyes see when they look at what they've done? Now this is a hard one, because here's one of the suggestions I hear all the time is videotape them and let them watch themselves. Okay, so you videotape them and they watch themselves. And they look at it and it is like they're watching animals in the zoo. They're like, wait, watch what's fixing to happen, watch what's fixing to happen. I'm thinking, this is not what I had in mind. Okay, enough, y'all need to go home. That is not what I had in mind. So how do you get a set of outside eyes, which is really what you're trying to do, a perception of eyes watching it? Well, here's something that I discovered that works, and I want to keep away from interference. And so I talked to the kids and I said, well, if somebody came in and watched, what would you want to know? And they said, well, we'd like to know, what do they see? What do they see? Because we've talked so much about elaboration, we want to know what's in their head when we perform. Because that's the only way we know if we've got them or not. So they went out and they asked a couple of people in the school that know nothing about DI, absolutely nothing, because when you have the drama teacher come in, she wants to give suggestions. We don't want any suggestions. You have parents watch, they don't see anything but cute. That didn't happen. So you ask somebody that knows nothing. So the custodian comes in, and one of the ladies in the cafeteria, and the kids give them a sheet of paper that has two questions on it. What did you see? And what did you like best? Those are the only two questions on that piece of paper, and they knew nothing about it. So they perform for them. They take the papers back. And now they've got some feedback of what outside eyes see. So they're reading the paper. The paper says, both papers say, oh, we saw a story about a cow that was lost and was trying to get back home. The kids are like, that was a dog. Now, most middle schoolers say, well, they're just dumb. They didn't get it. Well, the point is, two of them didn't. Two of them saw the same thing. They saw a dog that was lost. A really good team says, okay, now we've got to do something about that. We've got two choices. It either becomes a dog, and we play at the dog factor, or it becomes a cow, and we've got to make some changes. So we add some udders, we add a bell, and we add some horns, and it says moo a lot. That would probably help. That grunting you did just looked like a dog. Okay, the other thing is, what did you like best? And they liked, what the people both liked was, their favorite thing was the dog costume. Oh, well, if the dog costume was their favorite thing, why would we change it to a cow? Because that's what they like best. And we're not having the costume scored anywhere, and that's what they like best. That might make a nice side trip for us, because they liked that, and they noticed that. So that whole thing can give some feedback without it being interference. because it puts it all right back on the team. It's not about the person who watched, and they don't talk to the person, because it's not about convincing the person. It's about just, what did you see, and leave us alone. Go away. We don't want that, because we don't want interference, and we don't need anyone giving suggestions in there. Documentation. I'm going to suggest that one of the things in evaluation, if you do well, is you document. You keep that cell phone out and you snap pictures all along of lists, and I would suggest documentation of who gave the ideas, and you put their names out beside them whenever they have ideas. I'm going to suggest all of that. And it's in notebooks, and it's on your phone. Why? Because we're going to get to the point, people, of that celebration phase. And one of the things that I have discovered that the team loves is poring over where they've been to see where they've arrived. And what happens is we don't document that. We don't document the journey effectively enough to say, look how many ideas it took to get to this vehicle. And sometimes it's about taking pictures of the failures. Look how many failures we had. Look at this sorry thing. Look how bad that looks. Can you believe we thought that would work? That's part of the celebration phase. And we want students to understand what it feels like when you get to the end and you bring something into existence, what the journey was like. And you also want to give credit. You want to look down that list and say, oh, look here, the idea we thought was so bad at the beginning was her idea, and it turned out to be, this took us to global finals. The idea took us, we got a Da Vinci for that idea, and we thought it was so bad. And Jessica gets credit for it. We wrote her name down beside it. That was her idea originally. Now it morphed, but originally it was her idea. And you know what? Jessica's from a family to where she's had nothing good in her life. Nobody compliments her at home. And to know at the end of all that time that she has 6 other individuals that can look back at the list and say, she is the one that brought us here. She had that kind of effect on us. That's about changing a life, people. Why are we team managers? We're team managers because we want to change lives. That's what we want to do. That's what we're really about, is changing lives and being able to get them where they see how important it is. We don't have time for tips and things. We have time for all this stuff. I bring you back to the whole thing we started with, folks. It's about being an awakener. I want to end with one quick story for you. It's the team that I've seen that took the shortest amount of time to ever get a solution together. The middle school where I was, there was a group of 7 students that came together quite interestingly because another group of students in the school thought that they wanted to bring them together. A group of GT students decided that the ESL students in the school where I was might benefit from creative problem-solving skills. And so they put together in the fall semester, if you would, a workshop 2 days a week after school. And they wrote all the challenges for them. But the ESL students spoke no English. Zip, not a bit. And so in putting this together, the kids wrote all the challenges, and they had the teacher, the Spanish teacher, translate them for them. And they started looking for someone to run this workshop. And they said, we need someone energetic. We need someone who's fun. We need someone like you, Mr. Wells, but a lot younger. And I said, okay. And they chose 2 high school young men, a senior and a junior in high school who had done DI when they were in middle school. And they said, would you come and run our workshop? And so during the fall semester, those 2 boys came 2 days a week, and they ran a 1-hour workshop after school using the team challenge, the challenges that the kids had put together. But both of these boys spoke enough Spanish to be able to do that. At the end, we went to Christmas. We come back in January, and that group of GT students said, we want to test our workshop. We want to choose 7 kids from that group of ESL students, and we want to buy them a membership, a registration, and we want them to go to regional with us on a DI team. Now, by the time they did this, it was the very last day you could buy a team number. We're now at the middle to the 20th of January, and so they approached those 2 boys, and the 2 boys came to me and they said, we can't do this. We don't have enough time. We're highly involved. We're in band. We're in this. We're in UIL. We do all these events, academic events. We can't do it. And I said, guys, if you'll do it, it'll be over come the end of February. I promise. It'll be over. Because they don't speak English. And instant challenge, you just can't do it. So the boys started working with them, and in working with them, they stayed up there late at night with them, and I kept the school open, and I would listen to them. The kids were brainstorming. And one day, it occurred to me, but I don't speak Spanish, that I thought they were going to do the performance challenge. So I brought the 2 boys out in the hall and I said, guys, I'm not sure what's going on in here, but it seems that they're fixing to do the performance challenge. The boy said, yeah, they've chosen the performance challenge to do. And I said, you do know they don't speak English, and all of your appraisers are going to be English speaking. Don't worry about it, they'll figure it out. They can solve this problem. That's just another problem to solve, it's not a big deal. Well, it is good for y'all because now you've guaranteed yourself that you're going to be, well, that's all right. They're doing this, and okay. So we go through all of that, and we get ready to go to the regional competition, and the night before they're going to, winding them down, the night before regional, and these are kids that had no TVs at home. They were taking the teacher's lounge. If they would work religiously for 2 hours, they would treat them to 30 minutes of novellas on the Spanish channel in the teacher's lounge. They made popcorn for them. They treated them to snacks they'd never eaten before. It was a huge learning experience. So the night before regional, the guy said, okay, we're going to be leaving on the bus in the morning at about 4:45, 15 to 5, you got to be here to leave on the bus. And one of the kids said something in Spanish, and the 2 boys looked at him and they said, are you serious? They did not know that during that entire month when they were meeting at night, that one of those boys was walking almost 5 miles across town because he loved DI so much he wouldn't miss it. And he said he was telling him he was going to have to get up really early to get there. Well, the boys started picking him up. Well, they went to the regional competition, and I saw them at the regional competition, and oh, here they are. Here's all of these very dark guys, group of 7, boys and girls, with these 2 very pale-looking team managers. And the kids are jumping up and down, and they're yelling, hallelujah, hallelujah, and they're so excited. And I walked up and I said, so, what's going on? And the 2 boys said, well, we just came out of Instant Challenge. I said, looks good. And he went, no, it wasn't. It was awful. And I said, why are they so excited? He said, well, my last piece of advice to them when they went to Instant Challenge, because we can't really explain it in Spanish, was just do something. We've practiced, but they don't do anything. So my last piece of advice was, just do something. And I said, let me guess. And he said, yeah, they did something. And so they're excited. Okay, so the short of that was, they placed first at the regional competition. Now they're going to the affiliate level competition. The 2 high school boys are standing on their heads because they're like, we can't do this. And I'm like, well, okay, well, do the best you can. We have our own competition on that day. We can't do this. So what happened was, they were able to get the affiliate level to schedule their DI team late in the day. They went to an academic contest of their own early in the day, and they drove the 100 miles or whatever to be there with their team by the end of the day. The team performed, and by the way they saw the challenge was, they decided they wouldn't speak. Everything was acted out, and they used sound effects. So I see them at the end of after Instant Challenge, and guess what they're doing? Hallelujah, hallelujah. As a matter of fact, they now have shirts printed that say hallelujah on them. And they're jumping up and down yelling hallelujah. I said, let me guess. Both the boys said, they just did something. I said, good? And I went, no, they just did something. Long and short of it was, they won the affiliate competition. Now, you're going to see 2 high school boys trying to convince parents of illegals that it's okay to put their kids on a bus and take them over a day's drive away by bus. Can you really see yourself, if your children were in Mexico, putting your children on a bus and letting someone take them that far away? It took those 2 boys quite a while to be able to convince them that, but I will tell you that one of those young men was my son. When they won the affiliate competition, his mother, a high school English teacher, said, you're going to high school graduation, and it's the same time as DI. And he said, okay. I'm thinking, boy, that was easy. I've never seen my son give up that quickly. The next morning at breakfast, my son sat down at the table. He said, Mom, I've been thinking about this whole high school graduation thing. He said, tell me about your high school graduation. She said, okay. She said, well, she said, I sat next to your father. We were both in the top 10 of our class, and I sat next to your dad. He said, well, who sat on the other side? She said, well, I don't remember, but your dad sat on one side of me. And she said the class song, and it was, and the person who sang it, and he said, well, did you have a speaker? Yes, we did. She said, well, who was it? She said, well, I don't really remember. And, well, what did you talk about? She said, well, I really don't remember. Pause. So, Mom, you're asking me to give up my commitment to 7 people whose lives could be changed by something, to go to an event that when I get to be your age, unless I marry the person I sit next to, I'll have no idea who I was there with. I'll have no idea about the events. And I possibly can make a difference in somebody else's life by finishing my commitment. So my wife turned to me and she said, you know what, I'm going to Global Finals too. You might as well put us in a hotel room. We did go to Global Finals and they convinced the parents to take them. And at Global Finals, that team came in 6th. And they did get a Da Vinci Award. And that particular experience changed lives. It did change lives. On that Sunday morning when it came time for them to get on the bus and leave, I went to the dorm. By the way, at the closing ceremonies, there's 7 Hispanic kids up in the audience, boo-hooing and carrying on, and I'm down on the floor amongst 15,000 people or whatever there are, and I turned to those 2 high schoolers and I said, what are they doing up there? They're crying. Well, at that time, they only announced 6th place and up. And one of the high school, the juniors said, they think they've come in last place. And he said, I would have killed to have been on a DI team that came in 6th. I'm going to go yell at them. And he went tearing off up there to yell at them. The next morning when we were at the dorm and we were putting him on the bus, my son, I had to take him to the airport because he had a band contest and he had to get home and he couldn't ride the bus. And so I was putting them on the bus, helping get them on the bus. I'm the school coordinator. And my son went and got in the truck. And when I got in the truck with my son, he was sitting in the truck crying. And I said, what's going on? And he said to me, he said, I would have never done this if you'd have told me how hard this was going to be. He said, is it always this hard when it gets to this point and you have to let them go? And I said, I've done this almost 30 years. It's always this hard. And he said, what makes it so hard? And I said, because they're not the same people that you started with when you started this in January. If they were the same people, it wouldn't be hard. But I said, what makes it hard is when you see that they're not the same. I tell you that story to say, it doesn't matter how much time you've got with them, it's about changing lives. And we can change lives. If 2 high school boys can change lives, why can't we? We're adults. We should be able to do that. I should be able to change a life. No, I don't want to take maybe a team literature again. That's all right. Awakeners, people. Get out there and awaken those little minds. And it's 9:05 and you're dismissed and let's go home. Thank you very much.